The Trials of Sekhema in Path of Exile 2 has to be one of the best ways you can make currency in any league. Yes, that's right, I'm pretty confident this will be a good strategy with all the new upcoming leagues this game has to offer. So in this video, we're going to go over Poisonous Concoction and Pathfinder. This is by far one of the best trial runners and just a good build overall. I have already gone over the normal mapping and bossing variant of this build, so if you would like to go and check that video out, I basically explained everything, how to scale poison, how it works. So that's where you're going to pretty much get the skeleton of this build. So why Poisonous Concoction and what is so good about it? Well, the Pathfinder Ascendancy leans more towards Poisonous Concoction and boosting its damage. It is relatively easy to scale poison damage through the skill tree as well as our gear, and because we scale crit with it, the damage becomes absolutely insane with different levels of investment. Like I mentioned, this video will be the Trial of Sekhema runner version of this setup, so we'll be focusing on that. But first, before we go into the gear, why Trials of Sekhema? What makes it so good? Basically, you run trials, you get relics, you get jewels, and the big boy is the Last Flame relic that drops from Zarok, who is the last boss from this whole trial. This relic is currently over 400 divines right now, but this is late league prices, so of course it will vary depending on when you're watching this video. The consistent income is the Desperate Alliance relic, which is about a few divines per relic, and this also drops from Zarok but more consistently than the Last Flame. You use relics that have increased quantity of relics dropped to have a higher chance to drop more relics from Zarok to increase your chances of getting these good relics, and this allows us to farm a boatload of normal relics as well that can be crafted and sold for a pretty penny. And the jewels you get can also be sold, so overall it's just a solid, consistent income. But these trials are long, hence why we scale our movement speed as much as we can to bring it down to around 20 minutes a run, which is very good. That literally summarizes why you should do Trials of Sekhema. Let's talk about the build now. Let's focus on the key requirements for this setup. The main focus is the Queen of the Forest chest piece. This chest piece will increase your movement speed based on your evasion rating. We then scale our evasion rating through our pieces of gear as much as we can to further increase our total evasion rating, thus increasing our movement speed. For my medium to high investment setup that I currently have, I have about 67.6% movement speed just by sitting in the hideout. And just by the way, this can go way higher. Now, why Queen of the Forest and what makes it so special? In the Trials of Sekhema, you get relics that help you with the run when you open up the Jinbara. More specifically, Urn and Seal relics can roll a stat that has increased defenses. This stat will increase our evasion rating as well as our shields. With my current setup, I have over 300% increased defenses, and just by standing in the trials without any extra boons, I have over 100% base movement speed. We can then get 2 boons called Lustrous Lacquer and Enchanted Urn to further increase our evasion even more, which with my current setup pushes me just over 190% movement speed. That's quite a bit. And like I said, with more fine tuning, this can go even higher. And that's pretty much the whole preface of this build. We just focus on evasion rating and we scale defenses through our relics, and then you just zoom through. Now, how do we scale our damage with poison? Well, we will be using the Widow Hail Quiver combo. I do want to quickly note here that there is a potential this synergy will be nerfed in future leagues. If it does, whatever the next alternative that people come out with, you can simply just use that and then of course follow along with the Queen of the Forest and scale your evasion. You see, the main thing for the setup to work is Queen of the Forest and evasion scaling. You can chop and change any skill you want to fit. Whatever's the next best thing in future league, that's pretty much it. So please just keep this in mind if you are watching this video at a later time. Just know that it is flexible. It doesn't have to be Poisonous Concoction. But for now, until this gets changed, nerfed, or something comes out better, we will be using the classic Widow Hail with a good crit or primed quiver. The main stats on the quiver are +2 to projectiles, crit chance, crit damage, and attack speed. This whole build works on scaling our Poisonous Concoction levels to gain a huge amount of damage, so you need to have +2 projectiles. If you want an explanation of poison and so on, go check out my first video on it. There I explain everything for you. For the rest of the gear, we can go an ES based helmet because we run Subterfuge Mask on our skill tree, which gives us a lot of evasion from higher ES helmets. Full evasion gloves, full evasion boots without movement speed, since we don't need it because Queen of the Forest changes it that nothing affects movement speed besides evasion rating. Our rings are pretty standard, increased chaos damage, resistances, and the most important stat is flat evasion. I don't even have min-max like stats for this, it can go way better, but increased evasion rating is very important here. The higher this number, the faster you will move. For the belt, I went for a fine belt to help with the flask charges problem. A very important stat is increased flask charges gained. This will increase the amount of charges that are gained per second from our fine belt implicit and alchemist boon in our skills. For our amulet, it has to have 45 spirit minimum for the setup to work, with at least +2 to projectiles. If you can afford it, go +3, and then evasion scaling is very good with intelligence 2. And then for the anoint, we will go careful consideration. This helps with our global evasion rating. I would suggest trying to get over 100% rarity on your gear, but it's not a requirement. Okay, that covers the gear essentially. This is a medium to high investment for the build. You can absolutely do this on a budget in future leagues and work your way up. Sekhema trials are incredibly profitable, and if you do them enough, you will easily gain money to invest into more gear. So don't be discouraged if you look all this gear up and it's super expensive. Just start smaller and slowly work your way up. I do want to quickly talk about the gems. Just a quick overview. Of course, we have Poisonous Concoction. We got it through our tree. We run Scatter Shot, Chaos Mastery, Chaos Infusion, Deadly Poison, and Close Combat, which is switched out with Martial Tempo. When you're running normal, you use Close Combat for the bosses. It gives you quite a nice damage increase. For the crit scaling, we use Eye of Winter for critical weakness, and we run Withering Touch, Persistence, Unleash, and Inspiration. Then we run Despair, which gives us minus chaos resistance, very nice. Heightened Curse and Focused Curse here. Wind Dancer with Clarity, Blind, and Maim. Grim Feast, Ghost Dance, and Alchemist Boon. This allows us to gain flask charges per second. It helps us sustain our flask charges a little easier when we're not killing things and stuff like that. And then we run Frost Wall. This is for the Blink and Frost Wall synergy, in which we'll TP over walls, or sorry, doors should I say. And basically I will show a clip in the background, and you basically just place the Frost Wall as close as you can towards a door, and then you can blink over. We do run Blink on an offhand setup, and of course we use just a random wand with cast speed or whatever. And another very important thing is running Crest of Ardura. This will give us cooldown recovery rate. This is incredibly important. I definitely would give this one a go. It's very handy. It helps with our blink setup. But yeah, pretty much when it comes to the Frost Wall, you pretty much just press Frost Wall and you just TP over it, but you stand right up behind it, and that's how you do it. And that's pretty much it for the link setup. For blink, I do have Ingenuity and Second Wind, but that's it. Now, before we move on to the skill tree, we need to talk about our jewels. For the jewels, we need Emerald and Sapphire. For the Emerald jewels, you have two options here. You can go for the increased bonuses from Quiver stat with increased poison magnitude and then fill up the last stats, or you can go evasion rating with increased poison magnitude and damage ailments deal damage faster. This is a huge multiplier that actually doesn't reduce the duration of your poison stacks, and it's just a stat that has flown under the radar as to how good it is. It is insane. It's a huge damage multiplier. So yeah, if you want to, I would say go for the second one, because you get evasion increase, and that allows you to basically move faster, which is always very good. Then for Sapphire jewels, the absolute best Sapphire jewel you can get: maximum energy shield followed by increased magnitude of damaging ailments you inflict with critical hits and increased duration of damaging ailments on enemies. You can also get the damage ailments deal damage faster on these two, which is just huge. Get at least 2 of these jewels on your tree, and it is a massive increase in damage. It's like, yeah, these jewels should be more expensive, but because Poisonous Concoction is somewhat off meta, people just don't know how good these stats are. And then the next big investment jewel that makes this build have huge scaling for evasion rating, which will actually drastically increase our movement speed, is the Heroic Timeless jewel. This isn't a must, but it sure is nice to have, and it's not cheap at all. This late into the league, they are worth around 40 divines, and I can imagine it won't be cheap in future leagues. You need to get the Lion of Uros. This is incredibly important. Don't make the mistake of getting something else. This changes a keystone, which is the super big node on the skill tree, to Black Scythe Training, which states intelligence inherent bonus is 1% increased evasion rating per 2 intelligence instead. As you can imagine, we also need to scale intelligence on our gear so that our evasion goes up even higher. My current gear isn't optimized at all for this, to be fair, so I am missing out on quite a bit of evasion scaling, but this is why I said earlier, it can go way more. I don't even have min-max. I have like 160 intelligence, but still, it's a decent increase of evasion rating, and you can go way higher. One of the ways we can scale this is by using rings that have evasion and intelligence on them, and possibly use the ingenuity belt to scale this even higher. The only problem here is our flask charges may become a problem, so we can anoint arcane alchemy onto your amulet instead. So you can use ingenuity if you'd like to scale your evasion rating and damage drastically. And that covers all the gear, jewels, and ingenuity synergy. For a brief overview of the skill tree, basically we go into Traveler's Wisdom on the Ascendancy, as well as Poisonous Concoction, and then of course increased mana flask charges. And then we go Contagious Contamination and Overwhelming Toxicity to increase our poison damage. We then move into evasion rating as much as we possibly can, and of course Master Fletching. We run Crippling Toxins as well. We run Stacking, Lasting Toxins, Escape Velocity, of course Jewel Slots. We keep moving into Subterfuge Mask to increase evasion rating per maximum energy shield. I spoke about this earlier. Then we move into Leeching Toxins. This is very, very good. And then we come down here, go into the crit nodes, and of course we put on the Heroic Tragedy Timeless Jewel, and then we grab Black Scythe Training, which is very, very important. We then move into increased chaos skills and more chaos damage, and then we grab more poison nodes, and we move up into Spectral Ward, although this can be taken away, but it is quite a nice increase, so I wouldn't take it away. This is up to you. Eternal Use is flexible. I like to keep it on because you get a bunch of energy shield when you're in the trial, so it is handy for your life flasks essentially. And then we will use crit damage scaling from here, grab an extra jewel, more chaos, and then we move into Patient Barrier and Ingenuity. So yeah, this is basically just more intelligence scaling and so on. And that's pretty much the skill tree. I will be making a mobility guide on this, so you can just follow it there. This is just a general overview so you know what you're looking at type of thing. All right, now let's talk about the trials themselves and what's the strategy. First, let's talk about our relic setup. This is what it looks like. We need 2 amphora relics that have honor resistance and 2 to 3 additional choices. However, if you are starting out, just get honor resistance and work your way up to the additional choices, as these can be quite expensive. Then, because we are running Queen of the Forest, our Urn and Seal relics need to have defenses on them to scale our energy shield and our evasion. You want to go as high as possible depending on your budget, and then the next important stat is increased quantity of relics. Start small and work your way up to 20% each. You want to get to 20% on all of them to get a total of 120% relic drop chance. This all depends on what investment you can start with, so you need to gauge this yourself. Now let's move on to the strategy in the trials. For the boons, you only want these 2. The rest are bonuses. For the afflictions, you want to avoid these like the plague. Use the Frost Wall Blink strategy to get over walls that you would normally need to pull levers for. That's pretty much it. The first and second floor is focusing on Sacred Water and Merchants, and of course as you go along you start getting keys and stuff like that. You will begin to learn the layouts of each room, and I can't really teach you that. You're just going to have to practice. After a bit of runs, you will see it becomes like second nature and you know what to go for. For my final thoughts, Trials of Sekhema is an evergreen farming strategy that will always be incredibly profitable in all leagues of Path of Exile 2. It is a gold mine. Poisonous Concoction is a great option that can be budgeted and have really good investment scaling, pushing you easily over 200% movement speed when running trials. This of course depends on if they nerf or change Poisonous Concoction or Queen of the Forest. The main goal is the Last Flame relic. The bonuses are Desperate Alliances, relics you get from farming the trials, getting good rolls and selling them, and lastly the jewels you get, which can be incredibly profitable if you get good stats. Also, I'm hoping to hit 1,000 subscribers soon, so smash that like button. Thank you so much for your support. I hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, bye now.